Hello, and welcome to the Straight to the Source podcast. I'm Tawnya Bahr.
And I'm Lucy Allen, and we're looking forward to taking you straight to the source of the people driving our food and hospitality industry forward.
Today we welcome award-winning Indigenous chef Sharon Winsor into the studio. She's also the founder of Indigi-Earth. Through hardship, determination, and deep cultural responsibility, Sharon has spent decades raising awareness of Australian native foods while fiercely protecting the knowledge, stories, and traditions behind them. What she has built is far more than a successful food business. Indigi-Earth is grounded in country and community and is a reminder to seek out Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander businesses, support them directly, and help ensure the people who have cared for these ingredients, stories, and knowledge for generations are respected, recognized, and rewarded. Have a listen. Well, welcome, Sharon. We are so pleased to have you with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
There's a lot to talk about, but, your professional food story spans, over 30 years?
30 years.
We would love to start with, where were you born? And then we'll get into the food side of things.
Yeah.
But I think we all start from that birthplace.
Absolutely. And actually everything does stem back to my childhood. And so I was born in Gunnedah, and I spent the first 13 years of my life growing up out in between Gunnedah and Coonabarabran, a little place called Rocky Glen, and it's close to the Pilliga. And growing up, we spent our days collecting bush fruits down Bora Creek Road, catching yabbies, going to the dams and the lakes, just catching, not even lakes, there's no lakes out there, but just little streams and the muddy waters to catch yabbies, and collecting, medicines and things like that. And as a child, I didn't know that we were poor. Money was never, ever talked about, and everything was always made fun. So I used to think goannas were the size of crocodiles and they were going to eat us. And, we had to get the fruits before the emus come out, or else they'd chase us and attack us. And so everything was always made fun. And I didn't know that we were poor, that we actually done that as a big part of survival, and it was a necessity.
Did you grow up with siblings as well?
Yes, I grew up around a very big family. My dad's family, there's 15 children in my dad's family. And on my mum's side of the family, 9 children. So it's my mum's side of the family that's Aboriginal, my dad's side that's non-Aboriginal from Coonabarabran. My mum's side of the family is from Gallargambone. And so, yes, grew up out there with lots of family, and then with a younger brother at the time then, and other aunties and uncles that grew up with us as, I guess, kind of siblings in the house as well.
And so growing up in that environment, at what point did you either move or did things change in your life?
So we moved into Gunnedah, and I actually really hated being in town at that time. I just really loved being out in the bush.
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved just walking in the bush for hours upon hours. If it wasn't collecting bush fruits, I'd be walking with my grandmother. She loved going picking mushrooms to be able to cook and things like that. So both my black and white side of the family come from land, come from country, come from very poor background. But as I said, we didn't know it at the time. I used to love sweeping the dirt floor in the house, sweeping the loose dirt off the clay and things like that. We had our shower was outside in an old petrol tanker that was put up on a stand with a tarp around it, and that's how we would have a shower for a long time. So I really loved that. That was everything to me. I really loved it. And so moving into Gunnedah, I really didn't enjoy being in town, and I'd had a love for horses all my life. Don't know where it come from, but I loved horses. And so as my parents bribed me with a horse because I wouldn't stop crying to go back to the bush. And so I ended up getting, a pony, and it was from an uncle that gave it to us because parents didn't have money to buy a horse. So finished school in Gunnedah, and then I ended up in Sydney when I was 17 going on 18. So, yeah, most of my life in the country.
So 17 going on 18, when you move to the city or to Sydney, what did you do? And how did you get there?
It was the biggest culture shock of my life, moving to the city.
Mhm.
I hadn't been to the city much growing up, and I come to Sydney and I went to uni. I started to go to uni. And the first year and a half of that study time was doing nursing at Sydney Uni. And by the time I wasted a year and a half, I decided I could not do nursing. It wasn't for me. And I kind of got pushed in that direction through other family members being in health or nursing. I couldn't do it. It wasn't for me. And I thought, I better get a job. Otherwise, my parents will kill me for not doing anything. And at that time as well, even when I was at uni, I would spend almost every weekend driving back to Gunnedah because I hated being in the city.
It almost sounds like a natural progression, coming from the bush to Gunnedah, to Sydney, and then that actually sounds more like the country.
Yeah. And so my first job actually was not far up the road here.
Yeah.
Was with Wesley Mission at Edward Eagle Lodge.
Okay.
And I was the Aboriginal outreach worker working with our homeless community at Edward Eagle Lodge. And so they do a soup kitchen, and I started, doing a little bit in the kitchen and being able to help out and work with our community. But I was missing the bush so much, and I was talking to everybody about, if I was at home, I'd be collecting this fruit, I'd be eating this, I'd be eating that. Nobody had any idea what I was talking about, and it confused my brain so much. I was like, why doesn't anybody know about Five Corners? How come nobody knows about quandongs or, eating the sap off the trees for toothaches and all sorts of things? Like, I couldn't understand that. But it excited me so much because I wanted to share that with everyone. I was like, I've got to teach everyone how to do that and what's out there. Did
your siblings have the same sort of desire to follow in that as well? Were they interested?
No.
It
was me.
So from your mom's side of the family, that was innate within you?
Yeah, I think both sides of the family as well, because Dad was always very supportive of us learning more about our culture, and even, the white side of the family actually knew lots of our culture and how to live off the land and done things that were very cultural as well. So, yeah, but it was that connection that I had that I really loved.
Well, do you think that that's where, you're quite an advocate for food sovereignty, and traceability and giving permission and acknowledgement? And do you think that when we think about the last 30 years of your professional food experience, do you think perhaps that is the driver behind, we'll talk about Indigi-Earth, but behind your passion to keep educating everyone about Indigenous ingredients?
First and foremost, it's been my healing. And I'm now doing things that I never expected that I would do. I never allowed myself to dream as big as what I am doing. I never imagined that I'd be doing the things that I'm doing. And it has purely been built on the back of desperation of survival, healing, and to break cycles. So it's been my connection to culture through food that has kept me here through the darkest periods of my life.
And at what age would you say that you did go through the darkest time of your life?
The first time that I struggled was when I was 21, and that's when I lost my first baby. He was stillborn at full term, and his name is Nakiri, which means to give in our language. And at a young age, having a stillborn baby is, at any age, is really hard. But being very young and I guess not a lot of life experience, it was really, really hard, and I hit rock bottom pretty heavily.
And was that your first child?
Yeah.
So you're 21 years old and you're living in Sydney.
Yep. It was pretty hard.
Where do you go from there? How when you say the healing through food, like what was it that first sparked comfort after going through something like that?
So at that time, I'd actually started business, and I was living in Western Sydney. And so I'd started business. It was also my first year into business when I lost Nakiri. And it was, I hit rock bottom, and I couldn't function from one day to another. And so it was really, really hard to function. And then when I was encouraged by family to get up, go again, and I started, cooking and doing things and, practicing culture, I realized that I was starting to feel better deep in the pits of my belly. And when I thought about it, it wasn't the fact that I was doing commercial business. It was my connection to culture through business that I realized was going to be the start of a very long and continuous healing process. And so that's what kind of picked me up again, and I continued on. And then, I went on to have 2 more children who you've met, Kirilla and Malian.
Yep.
And, we ended up doing some incredible things in Sydney over 15 years of business, breaking some, barriers within the food space. And because when I first started business, doing some catering and events and traditional dancing, or performing as well, was people's mentality of native foods 30 years ago was it was witchetty grubs and goanna.
Yep.
It wasn't anything else. And so people had this idea of, I couldn't possibly be doing anything great because it could only be witchetty grubs and goanna. So there was lots of education that had to be done. There still is, but it was even harder 30 years ago. And I remember having a consultant that, small business or something back then had sent out, because I'd applied for some assistance with startup and some marketing, website, things like that. And their first go-to was to send a consultant to do a feasibility study on my business to decide whether they would support the business idea or not.
Now, was this business Indigi-Earth?
No, it was called something else back then. And so and at that time I had kind of also gone back to work part-time. So I was working at Centrelink at Mount Druitt, and the consultant come out, done a feasibility study. The report come back and said bush foods did not belong on a plate and a table in a restaurant. That's basically what it said. That my business idea would never work. It'd only ever be a hobby. So therefore, I never got any assistance to help set a website up, do any marketing or...
Fast forward to 2026. Do you reflect back on that conversation?
Every day. Pretty much every week I'm thinking, about that. And it was actually a driver for me. It was like, well, you watch me change it. and I, obviously pushed on and continued on. But yeah, we done some incredible things in Sydney. I remember doing things like, we performed for Oprah when she come to Sydney, took Tyra Banks and America's Next Top Models out bush and done culture and photo shoots and things like that, catered for lots of events, started traveling internationally, doing things.
So all these stepping stones, how did you, when we met, you were in Mudgee and you had a cafe there. And I'll never forget that day, walking up and then looking at the menu and being able to try all these beautifully prepared dishes. How did you get to Mudgee? At what point in your life did you move out there?
So I moved to Mudgee 14 years ago, and it was because of the second tragedy in my life. 16 years ago, I experienced some very traumatic, almost life-threatening domestic violence in Western Sydney. And so almost losing my life, it was, again, the pits of the earth that pushed me even further into the ground. And my dad had passed away during that time as well. And so I was still going back to Gunnedah a fair bit during, the years as well. And I hit rock bottom mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially. I couldn't function. And it was those memories of my childhood out bush that was the last flicker of fire that was still in my belly. And so I knew that I had to get out of Sydney to survive.
And Mudgee was calling?
I had to go somewhere where there was no family, both sides of my family. I had to go.
But you had
somewhere.
2 young children at the
Yeah.
time. So how do you do that? Do you just drive into town and without that support network?
I did. We had, we'd drive through Mudgee quite a lot, going to Gilgandra, to the other side of my family all the time from Sydney. So I'd really liked Mudgee. I liked the feeling of Mudgee. It was a growing food town. It was all of those things, and it was the hills around Mudgee that drew me there. I loved the feeling of being surrounded by the mountains.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I had nothing else to lose. I had a lot to survive. And so that was the only way that I was going to survive, is to leave and start my life again.
This conversation really, to me, cuts to the heart of why we do this podcast and why we're doing this podcast today. A lot's happened in the last 30 years. And as you mentioned, you've broken through barriers, and you've got a lot of people that are supporting and love and respect and that are right there, cheerleading you on. But it hasn't been easy. And I guess from a food sovereignty point of view and everything that's kind of going on right now, it would be nice to shine a big light on the realities. And there are a lot of smokes and mirrors about, supporting Indigenous-owned companies and producers and respect to the supply chain. So I'd love to talk about that and your thoughts around that.
And that's one of the reasons I agreed to come and chat to you as well. Not only it is hard to share my story sometimes, but it's important because people need to understand not only there's so much more to my brand, people just see the brand and what I do. They don't know the backstory.
Indigi Earth is not a food business.
Yeah.
It is much bigger than
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so people just see me as, oh, she's doing this, she's doing great, her products are everywhere, and automatically assume that it's come easy, and it is far from being easy. And the reason I give back so much as well, which is a natural part of who I am, is giving back and supporting, is that I owe it to culture to give back as well. If the ancestors, our old people, kept me here through the darkest days of my life. And so I give back because without them I wouldn't be here. And so it's important to share that, to be able to do things and give back respectfully. And that's how I do it, and the reasons why I give back. They didn't give up on me when I was ready to give up on myself.
You've kind of stepped into a role of carer for so many. How, from a mentor point of view, with the youth coming through that do want to go into the food industry, how do you go about supporting them?
There's lots of ways, whether it's I'm going out to community. A couple of weekends ago, I went back to Gunnedah and done a little cook up out on country with the community and some of the young boys, and just showing them, what's possible and having them have a taste. And unfortunately, a lot of our kids, whether they grow up in the city or in the country, they're not having that knowledge passed down to them through food programs or anything. So I'm doing what I can to be able to go and do that. And something that really drives me a lot now as well is that at a time when I was a child growing up, we had to hide the fact that we were eating bush foods. It was classed as a dirty food. And I remember taking some fruits in a jar to school one day, and I got in trouble off the teacher, and then my parents got reported to the welfare. So, like DOCS, it was called the welfare back then. And so our parents got reported to the welfare because they were told that we weren't being fed properly because we were eating bush foods. So at a time where we had to hide the fact that we were eating bush foods.
How did that make you feel?
I couldn't understand why. I was like, why are they saying it's dirty food? Like, that's coming straight from the tree. Like,
Yeah.
things, I could not understand it. And to now see so many people jump on the bandwagon with native foods because it's trendy, because it's just, people jumping on that bandwagon. And people that have no connection to country at all. And that there's so many of our people that have missed out or don't get the recognition that they deserve, and are grassroots people. There's a massive difference between people who just jumped on the bandwagon community and our grassroots people. Mm-hmm. Grassroots people are the ones that live and breathe, survived on country for necessity. And then there's other people that have just jumped on the bandwagon for the wrong reasons. And that really hurts. That's a space where I'm, trying to help people understand that native foods is more than just an ingredient. It is so much more than just an ingredient on a plate. It connects us to country. It connects us to storylines, connects us to trading with our tribal areas, our song lines, Mother Earth, Biami to God. It's so much more, and it's so deeply embedded in who we are as Aboriginal people. And that's one of the things that led me to developing Warrakiri dining experiences, so people could really understand that connection.
How does that make you feel from, when you're talking to other chefs that are inspired by your food and the culinary applications of the Indigenous ingredients, and then they too want to incorporate it into their menus? They want to source ethically and they want to tell that story, but they don't come from that background, but their intentions are pure.
there's so many people that do have the right intentions, and lots of them do reach out to me for that understanding and to do some masterclasses so that they can learn those things. And I love that. I love it. We want everyone to embrace native ingredients and our culture. Our culture is here for everyone to embrace. We ask that people do it respectfully. That's the missing point, is that people are not doing it respectfully. And we want everybody to be able to share the stories, be able to explain to people. And you know that I travel a lot. And so wherever I'm going and I'm eating, I'm looking for what's, native on the menu. And there's very few places that don't have native ingredients on a menu these days. But I can honestly say I've been very disappointed at the level of authenticity in lots of those places, because they're just using it as a
token ingredient or a trend.
Not only a token ingredient, but some of the places I haven't even been able to find the ingredient in the dish itself.
It's just in the description.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's a few of them that I've actually asked the waiters. And
have you called it out?
Yeah, I have. Good. And then the chef has come out and then don't know what to say to me because, oh, sorry, we're out of it. So, and I've explained to a few chefs, it's like, guys, that's not okay, because not only are you misrepresenting what our food is, you're bastardizing the industry, because a lot of people that are eating at those places are international visitors. So they're wanting to experience it, and there's hardly anything on the plate. So the first thing people are going to go was like, well, that wasn't really good, so I'm not going to bother anymore, or that wasn't great. And so they don't, it's that first impression that people are just, not getting an authentic experience from. And it's actually quite disappointing that some of these places actually have quite big reputations and names, and big places where a lot of international visitors stay.
Well, we have quite a few chefs that listen to our podcast or watch us on YouTube. And if they are and they want to reach out to you, and their intentions are righteous, like they just want to learn more and they want to know how to, apply Australian native ingredients into their menu and have it complement and be able to source ethically, they should just get in contact with you.
Get in contact.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely. Okay. There was one place that I was actually really cranky because the wattle seed had been pretty much watered down so much with chocolate powder that you couldn't even taste any wattle seed in it. So, cutting corners to bring that bottom line down to save money, like there's no point. Don't even put it on the menu.
Well, with National Reconciliation Week, that's complicated, and you've stepped back from it. Can you share with us your views on that and why you've done that?
It's both Reconciliation Week and NAIDOC Week. I will only accept work from people that do things all year round, that it's not just that one day of the year that they want to tick a box and make themselves look good for doing something great. And not only that, something like Reconciliation Week, we actually didn't come up with that idea. Aboriginal people didn't start that. Why are we needing to be the ones doing the reconciling? Like it's become a bit of a tokenistic gesture, and it's become very money driven, and that's not the intention of it. So I just, I stepped back quite a few years ago around Reconciliation Week and NAIDOC Week. There's a few companies that do things all year round and do it well. And it's not about their reconciliation action plan. It's not about, ticking a box. It's not about meeting their criterias of anything. It's just that they want to do good business and they do it well. And that's it.
So Indigi-Earth, like I mentioned earlier, it is much more than a food business. But can you explain where the name came from and when Indigi-Earth made sense to you and you wanted to continue forth with it?
It's a name that I come up with about 28 years ago. And it's something that I'd always wanted to build up to and be able to have a retail line of products. And so it took the first 15 years of business to build up, lots of contacts and relationships across the country to be able to get ingredients from. Catering 30 years ago, I soon discovered that there was no other Aboriginal business out there that was producing native food. So 30 years ago, there was no Aboriginal business doing it. So that's what kind of went, okay, maybe that's something I can do. It did take me a long time to be able to get to that level and to get to that stage. And I was so shy back then. And I kept thinking, I can't do that. I can't do that. And so every time I was able to achieve one little thing, I'd be able to take the next step and go, okay, that wasn't too bad. And then take another little step. And of course, financially as well, it wasn't possible. So I was just investing money back into the business all the time.
So what was the first product, the first Indigi-Earth retail product?
Lemon myrtle shortbread biscuits. And it was when I moved to Mudgee, I did have a little bit of a break, and then I rebranded the business to Indigiearth. And so Indigi, Indigenous, and to Earth, so everything that was related to Mother Earth, and it had to make sense. And I didn't want to. I'm also always encouraging other people in business not to actually use a lot of our language, I guess, in names, because either, people aren't able to pronounce our language properly, and that becomes, I feel like, it becomes a little bit of a, almost a really disrespectful thing if people can't say our language properly and then they just go, oh, whatever that business is, that blah, 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 and don't say language properly. It kind of is a little bit disrespectful.
Yes.
So I didn't want a name where people would not be able to pronounce or remember either, but still be strong enough to have connection to culture and country.
Sharon, when we talk about your product line, how are you sourcing it? Are you farming many of the ingredients?
So the ingredients are coming from one end of the country to the other.
Okay.
I'm growing lots of ingredients myself. I go out on country and get lots of things myself as well. And then I am sourcing from lots of other growers across the country. Lots of other communities. It is quite impossible for all ingredients and the volume to come from all Aboriginal-owned growers and business at the moment, where that's another thing that I'm working on to try and change some of that. But the non-Aboriginal growers that I'm working with, they're the ones that I choose to work with because they're doing the right thing. And they are respectful, they're supporting Aboriginal people and communities, they're learning from community, they're giving back to community. So they're the ones that I choose to work with. They're doing the right thing, and they're great people and respectful. But on the other side of things, I'm involved with lots of other projects in community where community are now reaching out and going, hey, we want to start growing some bush foods. We've got some land. Can you help us understand what that looks like? And so being able to not only support that community with knowing what they should be growing is understanding what's happening on the commercial side, and so that they're not getting ripped off as well.
And so what programs are in place to provide support?
There's no programs.
There's no programs.
There's no programs whatsoever. The only thing that myself, Raylene Brown, Annie Pat Torres from the Kimberley, Sharon in Brindley in Victoria, is our peak body. We need to have this. We need to have our own native food peak body for representation to help govern what's happening in the native food space. Something that we have been working together on for, over 10 years now. So we're just about to actually relaunch our First Nations Bush Food Alliance, which peak body to be able to help support not only community but growers, industry, education, and advocate for our people on country or people in business.
So how do we find out about that once it's launched?
You will find us, you'll see lots of posts on social media about it. There'll be some media releases going out, and then we've got the support of government departments who will help promote that for us as well. So,
and you've got straight to the source.
Yes,
forever and always.
Straight to the source to be able to share that. And we also, so the Australian Native Food Festival that that I launched last year. So our First Nations Bush Food Alliance will be a big part of the festival this year and delivering our Industry Trade Day in partnership with us to be able to elevate what we're doing with the peak body.
Well, what a wonderful segue. Let's talk about this festival, please. When is it? And what is it? And where is it?
So the festival this year, 25th to the 27th of September at Carriageworks. So last year, it was the first ever Australian Native Food Festival. This is something I've been working on for 5 years or more to be able to bring that together and launch. And every time I have been to other trade shows, the big trade shows at the ICC or Melbourne or wherever it might be, they are so big, so expensive to get to, and I feel like we're always getting lost. It's too overwhelming. People, you know what those days are
I do.
like.
And as much as we try, they're big and it's noisy and there's a lot going on. There's a lot of noise.
Yeah. So I kept talking to other people and saying, we need our own kind of festival. I need to bring the industry to us and just us, because so many chefs I'd spoken to were like, oh, we tried to find an Aboriginal business, we couldn't find one. And I'm like, oh, well, you didn't really look too hard, but everyone's time poor. Everyone just wants, needs the easy way. And I was like, okay, I was trying to talk to lots of other people about this festival. Nobody kind of had any belief in that concept. And then I was like, oh, geez, maybe then I have to do it. And so I started to build on that. I'm like, okay, how can I do this? How can I give back to the industry? How can I support more of our people and to help grow our presence in the industry? Because I feel like as Aboriginal business and people, we were starting to get lost in our own industry. It's worth a lot of money. It's worth, tens of millions of dollars a year. Aboriginal ownership is less than 2%. And Bush Foods is women's business. And Aboriginal women in the space, we only own a quarter of that 2%.
Is that right?
Yeah. Pretty horrifying. And so I kept thinking, okay, how can I do this? How can I change our presence? How can we bring some more attention back? So it was to create a festival, create the platform for our people to come together, create a platform for our people in remote regional areas that don't get access to the market in Sydney, that don't have the opportunity to get in front of the industry in Sydney. So that's how that all started and unfolded. Unfortunately, not a lot of people believed in me and my vision for the first year. I got a handful of sponsors. Breville sponsored last year, were incredible and love those guys. We got, a handful of sponsors, and it was Carriageworks who believed in me. And Carriageworks, who I'd been working with for a number of years, said, yes, we love it. Yes, we would love you to host it here. They helped with being able to bring that together by allowing me to use the space. And that's what we done. And I went into that festival knowing that I wasn't going to have enough money to cover all the expenses. but I still went ahead and done that because I had to back myself and I had to back the bigger vision of what it was. So I ended up with a debt of $22,000 in running expenses that I've covered myself personally because of my belief, and I had to back myself. But in turn, what happened is I thought that we may get 4,000 people turn up over the weekend from registrations that were made. We had close to 10,000 people turn up over 2 days. We generated over $225,000 worth of sales that went directly back to 22 Aboriginal businesses from across the country. I didn't charge our business a cent to be there. And it was about me using the platform that I'm so grateful that I've been able to end up with, to be able to give back to our people and the industry, because it's not just about the rise of one of us, it's about the rise of all of us. And so if we do it together, we're building capacity in the industry and we're doing it together. So none of the chefs charged me any money to be there to do the cooking demo. So Kylie Kwong, Ben Shuri, Karima Hazim, there was, lots of people that come along and done cooking demonstrations. And at the start, people couldn't understand why I was having, Kylie Kwong, Ben Shuri front and center and not an Indigenous chef. And the purpose is that we want our people who are the great allies in the industry to be there. They bring different people into our circle. And it's also about the alignment of storytelling through food. And so sharing cultures and alignment. So having, Annie Beryl on stage with Kylie to be able to talk about, while Kylie's cooking, Annie Beryl sharing those stories and sharing life stories, and people got a lot out of it. And then everyone went, okay, now we understand why you've done that, and it worked. And it's about bringing people together and going, this is the power of what our food does, and bringing people together through culture.
Well, you talk about using your platform. Now, the last year's been extraordinary.
Yeah.
Can we talk about that?
Getting an invitation to attend the awards, the Good Food Awards, was confusing to me. And I was like, why am I getting invited? And so I was, we're given 2 tickets. I invited my little brother Harley to come with me. And then
I've met Harley.
And leading up to it, I kind of felt like it wasn't important enough to go to, and I didn't belong in the room. I felt like I didn't belong in that space. And so Kylie had messaged me that morning and said, looking forward to seeing you at the awards, sis. I'll wait for you out the front. And I messaged her back and said, oh, do you really think that I need to be there? Like, I feel like I don't belong. And she immediately messaged back and said, yes, you do. You need to come along and you need to be in the room. I was like, okay, so you don't say no to Kylie Kwong. And so I got in the car. I left Mudgee. I was late getting to Carriage Works where the awards were. I got changed in the car park. I felt so small being in that room. I felt like I didn't belong. And it was really uncomfortable for me to be in that room. And I was sitting with Kylie, and then somebody come along to get her to go up and present an award. And my immediate thought was, oh, that's so nice. Kylie's going to be presenting an award. Of course Kylie's presenting an award. And when she got on stage and she mentioned that she was, the next award was the Bill Granger Trailblazer of the Year award. And that's the first year that award was being sponsored by Bill's family. And I immediately went, oh my God, how special that somebody is going to win this award the first year of Bill Granger, presented by Kylie Kwong. How much more special can that be? And so I sat there in that moment and went, oh my God, how beautiful. And then Kylie, after she explained the award and how special it was, she mentioned Nambar Whalewon woman. And I immediately looked around the room and I went, what are the blackfellas here? Like, who else is Whalewon that's here? And I was like, what is going on? And then she mentioned my name. Like, she mentioned the Australian Native Food Festival. And I was like, Kylie, stop talking about the festival or me. You're presenting an award. That's what went through my mind. And then she mentioned my name and I immediately fell forward with my hands in my lap. And then I heard my voice on the speaker, on the screen. And I thought, am I dead? Like I was like, what is going on? Why can I hear myself? And I looked up and there was a video of me playing on the massive screen on stage. And it clicked that they had filmed that at the festival. They filmed an interview.
And you hadn't seen this footage?
No, I hadn't seen it.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, what? And it was like just rolling through my head. And then somebody was sitting beside me and like kind of grabbed me, put his hands on my back and went, congratulations, Shaz. You got to get up. And I was like, what? And he kind of almost half picked me up.
And who was that?
And I actually can't even remember who it was now.
Okay.
And I walked up to the stage and walked on the stage and I just grabbed Kylie. I was crying. There was tears just running down my face. And I just held her and she was like, sis, now you got to do a speech. You got to like let go, do a speech. I don't even remember what I said in my speech. I have no idea what I said. And when I went back to the seat and I kind of just sat there because I had none of my family there with me. And it kind of felt a little bit sad that I was there by myself because I said to Harley, oh, don't worry about coming. Go do what you need to do.
Oh, so he didn't come?
No.
Oh, okay.
So he had said to me, oh, when's the awards on? Because I could, if I've been asked to coach for that, do a session at the ice rink or whatever. I said, yeah, go do that. Don't worry about coming. I don't know if I'm going to go anyway. And so he had taken on this other thing. But then I thought, you know what? I think I was meant to just do that myself and be there.
Yeah. And take it all in.
In that moment. So it was incredibly emotional, overwhelming. And it was everything and more. I still pinch myself that I'm, the 2026 Phil Granger Trailblazer of the Year.
Oh, and duly deserved. Duly deserved.
It's been an absolute honour. And on Sunday night at the dinner, I had the Australian, the manager of Bill's and the executive chef come to the dinner the other night. And so I paid respects and I shared that story with everyone in the audience and it was a beautiful moment.
Well, thank you for sharing that story with us. And now we have a little quick fire. Yep. Are we up for that?
Yep. One
native ingredient every Australian should have in their pantry.
Lemon myrtle.
The dish that takes you straight back to country.
Quandongs. Anything including quandongs.
Okay. Favorite meat protein to cook?
Kangaroo.
What does a perfect day look like? Not a work day, just a day.
Up early, morning coffee on the veranda, feeding my horses, sitting with my dog.
Name 3 condiments in your fridge at home.
Bush tomato chutney, any kind of fruit jam, and chili.
What do you do to relax?
Ride my horse.
Sharon Winsor, thank you so much for your company. Thank you for coming on our podcast. And we just have so much respect for you, your family, and your business. So thank you.
No, thank you. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening in. We really hope you enjoyed the conversation.
We would be keen to hear from you if you have a story to share or a topic that we should dive into.
Drop us a line. We always love hearing from you.